Hello everyone! Today I would like to introduce you to MPskin's new lights for virtual staging. The old or legacy lighting system can still be used until September 1st. After this date, all tours will be switched to the new lighting system. I recommend updating to the new lights before this date to avoid any issues with your live projects. Keep in mind that only 3D objects are affected by the lights. Images, icons, and videos are not affected. With the new lighting system, there are 3 different types of lights: the ambient light, point lights, and spotlights. To achieve the most natural lighting result, I recommend setting an ambient light first and then setting several spot or point lights, or a mix of both. The spot and point lights are used to create natural lighting, acting much like a lamplight would in the real world. Let's try it out. We first navigate to the virtual staging editor of the tour we want to edit. Then we click on Update Light for this tour. The ambient light affects all 3D objects in the tour equally. You can begin by setting a general ambient light, typically at a value between 10 and 15. The goal with the ambient light is to provide a general soft background lighting with just enough brightness to recognize colors and textures on the 3D models. After the ambient light is set, we can move on to fine-tuning the lighting by using spot and/or point lights. Both spot and point lights can be added like regular virtual staging objects, via the big green plus button at the bottom of the virtual staging editor. Neither spot nor point lights will be visible as an object in the actual tour itself. They are only visible objects in the virtual staging editor. Spotlights act and look like a torch. They fall in a conical shape and can be adjusted in both their intensity, angle, and their distance. To move or rotate them, we can use the same gizmos we would use for other virtual staging elements. After positioning the light, we can see the thin red lines indicating the circumference of the light cone. We can see those red lines changing when we adjust the distance and the angle of the spotlight. By default, the distance is always set to infinity and the angle is always set at 55 degrees. By reducing the distance and the angle, the conical shape of the light circumference becomes visible. I recommend setting the distance and angle first and adjusting the intensity at the end. The distance setting should always reach all the way to the floor or to the bottom of the virtual staging object you are wanting to light. This setting is especially useful when setting shadows. More on shadows later. Point lights act and look like a light bulb. They do not have an angle or distance parameter. They radiate light in all directions, a little bit like an orb of light. Since they are less adjustable, I personally prefer using spotlights, unless I have a specific use case for a point light that requires 360-degree lighting. On the other hand, point lights require less setup time, so they can be set faster and with less complex settings than the spotlights. Which one you use depends on your personal preferences and the use case. A color can also be selected for both spot and point lights, allowing you to create colored lighting as well. You can set multiple spot and point lights in order to achieve the desired result. Generally, they need to be placed in all areas that contain 3D objects. How many lights you need depends on the final look you want to achieve and on your specific use case. Let's now move on to shadows. Shadows are cast only by spot and point lights. In general, please note that the rendering and projection of shadows is quite resource intense. This can lead to slower loading times or even loading issues, especially on low RAM devices such as mobile phones. The intensity of the shadows can be set at the bottom left corner, below the ambient intensity slider. In order to see a shadow for a specific 3D object, you first need to select said object and enable the Cast Shadow checkbox. Next, the light source the shadow is supposed to be cast by also needs Cast Shadow enabled. By being able to deactivate shadows on the object itself as well as the light source, you can optimize the types of shadows you would like to see and avoid casting double shadows. When point lights are used for shadows, shadows will be cast for all 3D objects, potentially leading to unwanted extra shadows. This is why I recommend working with spotlights when it comes to creating natural shadows. When using spotlights to cast shadows, it's important to keep in mind that the distance and angle settings will affect how a shadow is projected. This also allows you to fix issues with shadows projecting through walls, for example. And that's it! For any more questions regarding the new light system, feel free to reach out under support@mpskin.com.